2-bedroom apartment. That story for another time. But just an aside, Wally's mom, his dad, and Tim were all awaiting Wally's arrival in heaven, as Tim passed unexpectedly in 2016. But what I knew all the while, that while all of us roommates were close, Wally and I had similar aspirations to tackle and take on the corporate world. So our connections were still growing, and that's what I held close. Kimberly and I, my wife, still remember all the noise in the hallway on our wedding night when Tim and Wally brought my car keys back to the room of the Four Seasons. I didn't ask any questions about who drove the wild streets of Seattle, but it was obvious by their laughter and the noise in the hallway that they were having a lot of fun. Regardless, they had each other, and I knew they had my back. Second, every year in Portland, for the last 17 years, me and about 4 of the black people in Portland, there are a few more than that. At least 12. Regardless, Wally joined me for that tournament. It was such a joyful time to have him there with me. I mean, what do friends want to do? We got to hang out, play golf, have a drink, and catch up. What friends would want more than that? Unbeknownst to me, there was another purpose in mind for that visit. You see, after Wally returned home, he called me, and on that Friday afternoon, he shared his diagnosis with early onset Alzheimer's. And at the time, he was still conflicted about the diagnosis. Well, he had mentioned to me that Mackie had hoped that he would have shared that diagnosis with me, but he was still cognizant enough and knew that that wasn't when he wanted to share it with all that was going on. But as I reflected on that time in Portland, I could see how the disease was starting its unwanted yet expected journey. And after that, our Friday calls became way more frequent and way more important. The last one was the trip of all trips. In 2016, 1 year later, I was both honored and scared, but I was called to what I call chaperone Wally on his final solo trip. I can remember my conversation with Mackie asking if I was going to homecoming because she said this would likely be his last solo trip. She said that what I was supposed to do was basically own his medications, but to make sure I was okay, likely, made sure that Wally was a friend on my Find My iPhone app. I never thought that I would need that app. Well, almost 10 years later, I must confess, it was vitally important. Now, Mackie had arranged flight times so that I got there first, picked Wally up at the gate, and then I left last to make sure he got to his. But her only charge to me was that I just want him to have a good time. Now, under normal circumstances, that would not be what you would expect a spouse to say, especially with several college buddies going back to their home stuff. But not to worry, I knew what was expected of me. But again, I thank God for Blakely and the Find My iPhone app. I did, in fact. We did, in fact. We lost him. We lost him. Jamal and I had to find Wally in the midst of homecoming. Thank God, every time we found him, a Morehouse brother had him safe and sound. At the end of the trip, as I passed the duties of chaperoning onto a family friend of Wally and Mackie's back onto the airplane, I called my wife, Kimberly, and just broke down crying. You see, I could see with my own eyes that my friend was losing his battle. While I was honored to be there alongside him, I literally spent every minute of the previous 80 hours just to get a glimpse of the battle that was waging at home. So Mackie, I thank you for trusting me. It was an honor, and may God bless you for all that you've endured. Now, this wasn't the last time I saw Wally. I took several more chances to go visit when stopping by for work in LA or with my kids. But like was said earlier, Proverbs 17:17 said, A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born at times of adversity. Friends stay close regardless of the circumstances. But my final trip came in 2019 at his care facility in Baton Rouge. My final remembrance of Wally, as many have said before, will be his bright smile as we both entered and exited the facility. You see, if you knew Wally, you knew his smile. It lights up a room. While I will never get a chance to see or speak to him again, I will always remember his smile, his laugh, and most importantly, his friendship. Wally, I miss you, and I love you, and thank you.